we'll look at a couple of things that we talked about. The first, we talked about forward lookup zones. And in the forward lookup zones, we're going to have the ones that we create. They're going to have you create a bintech.local. And these have machines in the bintech.local. The CIS2560.local, the one that you guys joined, in order to install WDS, well, we have records for them there now. As long as you're using this server to do the resolution, they get put in there. That's where we get into the DDNS, the dynamic registration of them. And we even have one of them down here is IPv6. We have a AAA record. So we have at least one IPv6 record in here. The other ones we have the start of authority, and this one I conveniently didn't rename Win2K8base.cis2560.local. That is this machine, so that's the start of authority. The name server record, the NS record, is here, and it has the same sort of information in it. Let's see if we can stretch this a little bit. Hostmaster, and this keeps going, hostmaster.cis2560.local. Hostmaster, it is a DNS server. The service records that they talk about, SRV records, are all in this MSCDS. We have forest and domain records, and let's see, TCP, we go in here, GC, a global catalog server, says the SRV, the type SRV record, and then the data tells where that service is located. And in this case, it's all going to be on this server, the Win2K8base.cis2560.local. And you notice these have a dot at the end. That represents the root when we do these things. We can create our own zones, and if I right-click, New Zone, I can do a primary zone, a secondary zone, or a subzone. The primary zone can be stored this zone in Active Directory. That's what makes it an Active Directory integrated zone. Since I already have one of those, I'm not going to do that. I can just go in here and make it my zone.local. I can make it anything that I want, as long as at some point things have information appended to them. And here, do not allow dynamic updates, allow both non-secure and secure dynamic updates. What do you want to do? If it were an Active Directory integrated zone, we would have the option of using allow only secure updates, and that's the one you should pick for Active Directory. Once I create my zone, I can now go in here and create records for that zone. And then I would be able to resolve any of the resources that were available for it. The other next type of zone that we can do here is a secondary zone. A secondary zone is a read-only zone. And the zone name, I'm actually going to do a transfer, because to have a secondary zone, we need to make a copy of something. To make a copy of something, we've got to have that something. This actually should be a zone that exists. I may be making a fool out of myself, but we'll see. And the server that it exists on is, let's see if I can get all this lit up here, 10.60.66.253. And it says that it found that one. So when I go there in cargru.edx, I now have the records that are in that zone. The difference is, on this one, when I right-click, you don't see any ability to create new records. So it is a read-only copy of what goes on here. The next one that I want to try to do is a stub zone, but to have a stub zone, I really need to have a name server. So I'm going to combine a little bit of NS lookup with creating a stub zone. NS lookup, we just type NS lookup, it will have a server, and it says the default server is localhost. It's telling me that it's using my DNS server to do these lookups. If I wanted to find the zone ecpi.edu, it tells me that it's at 70.32.70.233. What I want to do is a stub zone for ecpi.edu. To do that, I need a name server for ecpi.edu. So we can change the record type with a set type command equal ns, and let's see if it will do it for me. ecpi.edu, and they are ns2, ns3, and ns1.ecpi.edu, and it gives me their IP addresses, and the IP address is what I wanted. So I want to go in here and do a new zone, and in this case I want to do a stub zone, and this is the where do I want to replicate all this stuff, to all of them in the forest, to all of them in this domain, to all domain controllers that are capable. I'm just going to leave the default here. The zone name in this one was ecpi.edu because that's where I went to find the name server. Now it's going to ask me for the address, and I got to go back and find it. It is 199.36.13.6. Does that work? 199.30.36.13.6. Was that right? NS2. And when I finish with this one, I don't have anything but the name server records in it. What this would then allow me to do is, if I'm going to go to ecpi.edu, instead of going through that iteration process, going to the root, going to the top level domain, it would then find the name of the name server, or one of the name server record IP addresses, and go directly and get that information. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about conditional forwards, which sometimes don't make a lot of sense. Why would we want to use that? The condition is the domain that we're going to forward these things for. To try to demonstrate that one, Roanoke dc1.roanoke.ecpivab.edu is a domain controller. It should be 10.60.1.4. If I try to ping it from here, I can't get there because it can't get to that domain. That's an internal domain, which means that even if we go through all that iteration process, it's not going to find it because it uses private IP addresses. The conditional forwarder would be used to forward maybe for ecpi.edu for all of that, and let's forward it to 10.60.1.4, which I know is DNS server on that one. It happens to be the Roanoke DC1. A problem occurred. It already exists. The conditional. Did it say the conditional forwarder already exists? Oh, what already exists is this domain. So let's delete this domain. I already put it in there. It won't let you. It won't let you do the same thing twice. So how do we get rid of them? We just simply tell them to go away. So now let's try the conditional forward. ecpi.edu 10.60.1.4. And let's see, it may not like it. It may want me to do a refresh of that one. Now it says I have a conditional forwarder. If this conditional forwarder is working, I should then be able to ping this guy, right? Still says ping could not find a host. I did? Yeah. Oh, I did, didn't I? And I spelled flush wrong too, didn't I? Start this back. You let me make a really silly mistake, ecpi.edu, but what I really want is ecpivab, right? ecpivab.edu, because the domain that we're in. Still unhappy, but let's see if it's any happier here with being able to resolve that resource now. Still says it can't do it. Sometimes you notice that I flushed DNS and now it works. If you get a bad lookup in DNS, that gets cached also. A bad lookup, because initially I tried to do a lookup and couldn't find it. So that got cached. So I can't find it. And I go back and do that again, and it says, I'm not stupid. I already told you I couldn't find it, so I'm going to tell you again I can't find it. You got to flush DNS in order to get that out sometimes. But now I can get there, and it conveniently is 10.60.1.4, but the conditional forwarder, I can now use that for only those domains or that domain or whatever domain we want to use. So we've looked at zones, Active Directory integrated zones, one that was already there, primary zone, one where we can make the changes to, secondary zone, which is a copy of something, how to do a zone transfer. A little bit of overview of NS lookup. There are a number of records, and that's what the set type is about. What kind of record are you looking for? And then conditional forwarders. Are there questions about that? I know that was quick, but this is designed to be an overview, not a configure it as we go kind of thing. Questions? Then I'll quit here and let you get to work.